Council Russell. I'm Michael Brown, Vice President of Marketing and Communications. In response to several complaints about unregulated vending and expressive activity last year, you amended Port Code Section 8.05 in February of this year to address a variety of health, safety, and welfare concerns along the Embarcadero. More specifically, the amended code did several things. One, it allowed commercial vending in 36 allocated spaces with issuance of a temporary commercial use permit from the district's Parks and Recreation Department. Two, it continued to allow expressive activity in 41 allotted spaces on a first-come, first-served basis. And three, it clarified penalties and enforcement procedures. The updated code became effective in March of 2023, this March, and an extensive education and outreach campaign was conducted for 6 weeks prior to beginning any enforcement, which started on May 1st of this year. In partnership with the Logan Heights Community Development Corporation, these outreach efforts reached 162 BIPOC-owned businesses, 120 women-owned businesses, and 175 businesses operating in low and moderate income census tracts. You directed staff to return this fall with an evaluation of the updated code and to recommend any additional modifications based on what staff observed over the summer. I'm pleased to report, so there's hand gel but no water. That's fine. All right. So you directed staff to return this fall with an evaluation of the updated code and to recommend any additional modifications based on what staff observed over the summer. I'm pleased to report that the updated code has largely been a success, although there are some opportunities for improvement. As you'll see, staff recommendations today are based on an assessment of how frequently the allotted spaces were used, so occupancy rates, as well as an email survey to commercial vendors, people engaged in expressive activity, port tenants, and port staff. The Vending and Expressive Activity Regulations Code from last March, as well as the recommendations presented to you today, recognize the right of free speech as guaranteed under the First Amendment and institute reasonable time, place, and restrictions to ensure that the public's health, safety, and welfare can be maintained. Before you today are Erica Naguera and Larry Hoffreiter from the Parks and Rec Department, Captain Jonathan George from our Harbor Police Department, thank you, Sophie, and Simon Kahn from the General Counsel's Office. I'll now turn it over to Larry Hoffreiter to give a staff presentation.
Thank you, Michael. The purpose of the March 2023 Port Code Section 805 update was to provide increased economic development opportunities and to activate the waterfront. Additionally, it also sought to ensure basic health, safety, and welfare standards are maintained and reduce the negative impacts of unregulated vending and expressive activity. To help evaluate the March 2023 update of Port Code 805, staff looked at occupancy rates between June 1st and August 31st this past summer. We also conducted a brief email survey to key stakeholder groups the last week in August. While the email survey provides useful insights, it's important to note that it is not a scientific survey and it is not a representative sample of the stakeholder populations. As Michael mentioned earlier, the March 2023 Port Code 805 update was generally successful. With assistance from the Logan Heights Community Development Corporation, staff qualified 120 commercial vendors. This means that 120 commercial vendors provided us with a valid business license, received necessary health permits from the County Health Department, and demonstrated a willingness to secure proper insurance requirements if selected. Of the 120 qualified vendors, 36 were selected in the Port's April 12th opportunity drawing and began operating on May 1st. We found that between June 1st and August 30th, 62% of the commercial spaces and 39% of the expressive spaces were occupied. With support of our harbor police, the port's community service officers issued 52 written warnings and 65 citations. This level of enforcement served to discourage the high number of illegal food vendors we witnessed in 2022. Finally, 3 out of 5 of the stakeholder groups that responded to the email survey agreed that the updated code improved the general public's experience along the waterfront. However, there are opportunities for improvement. Modifying spaces in certain designated areas will help address concerns that some allotted spaces were not viable and that other spaces obstructed view corridors to the bay. We also learned that a plurality of the 129 survey respondents reported that the number of commercial and expressive spaces should be reduced. In response, staff is recommending an overall net reduction from 77 to 66 spaces. This involves increasing the number of spaces in certain designated areas and reducing the number of spaces in other designated areas. Staff is also recommending to require commercial vendors to prominently display their permit, to reduce the amount of time vendors can leave their equipment unattended from 3 hours to 1 hour, and to extend the current permit cycle to December 31st instead of November 30th, so that the next permit cycle can begin the first week of January 2024. Subsequent permit cycles would be for 6 months, beginning every January and July thereafter. During the 3-month field survey period, the wooden deck near the midway witnessed the highest occupancy rates. Commercial spaces were occupied 92% of the time, and expressive spaces were used 87% of the time. Therefore, staff recommends increasing the number of commercial spaces from 6 to 8 and expressive spaces from 6 to 9 in this area. This modification places more commercial and expressive vendors in areas where they can reach their intended audience, and it helps address some of the written comments that not all of the 77 spaces were viable. Staff also recommends reducing the number of spaces behind Seaport Village from 18 to 11. As you can see, the photos here show a wall of tents blocking pedestrians' view from the promenade to the bay. Eliminating 7 current spaces, illustrated by the red boxes on the right, will help open up these view corridors. Staff also recommends removing 1 commercial space and 8 expressive spaces in this area near Seaport Village, largely because of low occupancy rates. In fact, 8 of the 10 expressive spaces were not used one time during the 3-month survey period. Finally, staff received the following written requests from commercial and expressive vendors. First, commercial vendors requested a 12-month vending permit. Staff recommends maintaining a 6-month permit to provide the opportunity to vend to more commercial vendors. It also provides the potential for the public to experience a greater variety of merchandise throughout the calendar year. Second, commercial vendors and expressive artists requested permits for free parking. Staff does not recommend providing parking passes to commercial or expressive vendors because parking is scarce along the waterfront and should be made available for the general public. Lastly, commercial vendors and expressive artists requested dedicated loading zones. Staff does not recommend providing loading-unloading zones because the curbs are needed for either parking and or emergency service vehicles. If the board adopts staff's recommendation, the ordinance would become effective Friday, November 10th. Staff would continue to accept commercial vending applications through October 29th and conduct the opportunity drawing on Thursday, November 17th. The next commercial vending cycle would begin on Friday, January 5th, and run through June 30th, 2024. Thank you for your time. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much, Larry. We'll now move on to public comment.
Thank you. We'll start with one online public comment from John Stockwell.
Hi, can you hear me? This is John Southwell.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
First of all, I'm the owner of Malibu Farm with my wife, Elaine Anderson, and we're really excited to be finally open. It took a while, but we're thrilled by the initial reception we're getting, even in our soft opening phase. And this whole issue reminded me back to when we first visited in 2019, and we loved the way the restaurant opened up on the parkland, filled with picnicking families, views of the bay. Yes, there was one grumpy individual who stacked lots and $5 for a photo, but really no indication of the tent city that was to come. And we are definitely very concerned about the growth of vendors and hawkers and buskers and others with their tents who now surround our lower level and attempt to drown each other out with their amplified speakers. And look, we're used to having locations in cherished public spaces like the Malibu Pier, which is the California State Park. And they believe in free speech at state parks, but they would not allow a few members of the public to interrupt the enjoyment of the pier to tens of thousands of visitors. They also know that their ability to collect the kind of percentage rent we pay to fund all their other programs would be in serious jeopardy if they allowed a handful of vendors to interrupt the experience that makes going to the Malibu Pier such a special experience. You know, about 9 months ago, we got very, very concerned about the growth of these vendors on the first level and decided to pull back on the funding of the first level until we understood how this relational pop-up tents was going to be handled. I think we appreciate this ordinance, we appreciate what the court's trying to do, and we appreciate dialing back the number of vendors in that area where they completely block the view corridor. And our other suggestions would be no amplified music, just like you have in the Petticat ordinance, no pop-up tents. These are the biggest eyesores, sources of view blockage. I would suggest no vendors within 100 feet of a visitor-serving business. But just in general, the ability to keep the open space open and keep the view corridors open is what's really important to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our in-person speakers. We have Daniel Toscano, followed by Jay Lublius. I'm so sorry for that pronunciation.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Toscano, speaking on behalf of the General Service Department with the Port of San Diego. Currently managing staff at 32, we are in charge of trash removal along all port tidebinds, boardwalks, and walkways. My team works 7 days a week, 365 days a year, including all holidays. Prior to the ordinance, we were unable to keep up with the amount of trash and litter throughout our parks and boardwalks. To assist us with the amount of trash and litter, we're forced to rely upon contractors to complete a second trash run, beginning 7 days a week at 6 p.m. The number of vendors along our walkways made it difficult and at times unsafe to navigate the areas and complete our daily tasks. My team did a great job working with or around the vendors, even though at times some vendors were not willing to work around us. Since the ordinance, my team has been able to remove trash and litter daily in a safe and efficient manner, and we're now starting to catch back up on our regular scheduled PMs, such as power washing and sidewalk repairs, something we were unable to do prior to the ordinance. I would like to acknowledge our current vendors and thank them for working with us to help us keep our bayfront clean of litter and debris. In closing, I would like to thank my team, especially my leads, Roberto Rodriguez, Leonardo Sepulveda, for keeping our crews focused on the task at hand and doing their best to provide a bayfront we can all be proud of. We still have a lot of work to do along Tidelands, but my team and I are proud and happy to do it. Thank you.
Apologies for my pronunciation. I believe it's Jay Iglesias, followed by Christine Classinas.
The reason I'm here is I think that you can use a little more vendors as far as people that are selling the spaces for free speech aren't being used. You should cut some of those down and switch over vendors. People that live in San Diego should get first right over people that do not live in San Diego for these spaces. And if those spaces are short at a certain time, say 10 a.m., if those spaces are not taken, the rest of us that do live here should be able to come in with a city permit and set up and sell in those spaces. Now, whether it's something I have to pay for, and you guys make money and use that money to help clean up the city or clean up the area, that's an option you should consider. I mean, I don't mind my money paying 40, 50 bucks a day, like I was at like some kind of farmer's market, more or less, and take that money, maybe use it for the homeless, use it to clean up the area, but it could benefit everybody. That's all I got.
Thank you. Christina Plaisance, followed by Griselda Pineda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christine Plasencia. I've been a vendor out there for a few years, so I was there during the 2022 circus. That's what I can say. I am really grateful that there's been a lot of changes, and also thankful to Larry and Sophia because they do answer my calls, do take my emails, and generally, have taken into consideration things that, we have asked. From a personal point, some of the blue locations are not being filled, so my recommendation would be to move over to the next person if someone is in a spot that they're not going to be any, for whatever reason, personal reason, and say, you know what, we're not going to be able to make it, let's fill those spaces with somebody else that is complying and give them an opportunity and turn it over to the next person. I speak to people all day long. I love our community. I love it there. All the vendors that are there are keeping it nice and clean. It's amazing. However, people really do like seeing that area, our areas full. They love the vending experience. They love the expressive artist experience. We do need at least one food vendor out there. We don't have any. And people do complain a lot about that. Another thing that I'd like to address is the 1 to 3 hour that they are wanting to give us an hour to set up. God forbid, I live 20 minutes away. If I forget something one day, I don't know if I'd make it back in time. So I do believe that the 3 hours windows should remain the same because we do have to run to the parking lot. There is no loading zone for us out there. So it makes it a little difficult for us on that aspect. But overall, huge improvement. Everything looks nice and clean now compared to a year ago. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we have Griselda Pineda, followed by William Dorsett with seated time.
Hello everyone, my name is Griselda Pineda, and I'm here to talk about my experience in these 5 months that I've been working as a vendor. I feel that with the new rules and regulations, there's been a lot of good changes at the port. We now don't have any hazard out there, like hazard equipment or unsafety stuff, like unsafety or unhealthy carts, food carts that we used to have before. We don't have it anymore, which is great because I feel that people who have like health permit or who are selling food, they should all have health permits. That's one of the things because a lot of people, they come to San Diego with kids and we have to take care of them. I also think that the new regulations, it has done a lot of good for everyone. But I do wanna ask everyone if you can give us like more time, not a 6-month permit, if we can have at least a year, because 6 months is not enough. It's not enough, and I feel it's gonna be less hassle for everyone if we have it for a year at least. And parking, if we can please have work out something with the parking. I've never got so many tickets in my life. Yeah, so that's one of the issues for the vendors, that we really need parking, and if we can work something out with the parking. And I hope that we can all work together as a community and for the best of all of us.
Time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have William J. Dorsett with time seated by Michael Pfaff and Half Pike. We'll adjust your time to 5 minutes.
So I'm prepared
prepared a speech, but 5 minutes will not be enough time to read it. I've sent you all a copy of this, so please go to your emails and read it. I'm going to cover a couple of things in it. Good afternoon, board commissioners and members of the public. My name is William J. Dorsett. I'm an artist, a busker, and a First Amendment rights advocate. I'm here today to try to get you to see the errors in 805 vending and expressive activities in the Thailand. I think former California Assembly member Lori Saladinas said it best at City Community meeting last week. There are moral hazards and constitutional legal hazards by missing constitutional expressive rights with vendors and commercial activities. You may create rules legally to limit vendors who are engaged in commercial activity, but you cannot restrict Americans' First Amendment rights. Mike Feth said, court has ruled that the public has also a right to expressive ideas. The court is also violating their First Amendment rights, and he's correct in that, because when you put us away from the public, you're not just restricting our speech, you're restricting their ability to enjoy us. Some of the public members have ADA, different reasons that they can't get out to these other zones. The zones where they're already at, where they're already exploring and enjoying themselves, is the best places for buskers and artists to be. I'd like to go over public forum doctrine. Traditional public forum is sidewalks, parks, beaches, and any public place. That has already been allotted for free speech, expressive activities. The port is traditional public forum. What you guys have built is for limited public forum, like state parks, schools, things of that nature. And then there is non-public forum, like prisons and military bases, where you can extremely limit free speech. The content neutrality of this code is not content neutral. You apply it to buskers and artists, but not everyone else. You do not put the general public in these free speech zones. And if you did, you would face heavy scrutiny. For what you've done, you should be facing heavy scrutiny, because you politicize, as I've said before, you politicize free speech. I don't think you realize the weight of what's been happening and the rights violations that you've all been complacent in by allowing enforcement to keep hammering us with these citations. We've not been allowed to engage our intended audiences as we see fit. We have been pushed out of the area, and our speech has been severely limited and restricted. That could go against you all. You all have an oath of office, even if you were appointed. I know some of you may think, I don't know which one of you said this in the meeting, but it was on the grand jury report, that you think you're above the law somehow. You're not. You can face the consequences for these things. The final thing is just the way that the system works with these citations. You get a $250 ticket, a $500 ticket, a $1,000 ticket. Most of the people that do this don't have that kind of money. We can't call in and get it reduced because the number's broken. We appeal, it goes to a judge who isn't obliged by the First Amendment or any other constitutional amendments. And then the second appeal goes to traffic court, and it stops there. We can't appeal to the higher courts who have experience in civil rights. I don't know, that sounds like a bad judgment on your part, if you ask me. All the way through, you guys have just rushed this First Amendment stuff that is so complex and so detailed. Even I don't understand it all, and I've been studying this stuff since 2008, the first time that y'all restricted my speech by someone in the port writing in a word onto a permit, completely changing where I was at and shutting me out of the permit, which is why you had the permits reduced in the first place. Because of that, vendors came in and took advantage of the law. And then who gets the trouble? The expressive artist. We get the most restrictions. And then all of a sudden it happens again after the pandemic. Vendors come in and abuse the law, and then we get written out. That's not right. We didn't do anything. We have always behaved. The previous model was the least restrictive. It worked the best for expressive activities. Very rarely was there ever need for enforcement on us. Now we're getting citations on a daily basis. It's not right. How about you get cited for your free speech when you're outside of the box? How about we cite you $1,000 every time you speak outside of the free speech zone? Thank you. Have a good day.
Brandon Turner, followed by Sharon Flowers.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Turner, and I'm an artist, musician, and busker by the name of B-Turn. And I'm here today in opposition of Agenda Item 9, and we're going to talk a little bit about expressive activity. Here at the heart of San Diego, we stand at a crossroads. The very soul of our democracy, the sacred right to free speech and expression, is being tested. This is not just any right, it is the pulse of our nation and the lifeblood of our identity. Imagine a world where the vibrant voices of musicians, the passionate strokes of artists, and the bold expressions of our people are silenced or dimmed by the shadow of overregulation. The proposed amendments to San Diego District Code Article 8 threaten to do just that. They may seem like mere adjustments to allotted spaces and permitting cycles, but in truth, they have the power to choke the vibrant heartbeats of our community. Each one of us carries stories, dreams, and voices that yearn to be shared and to be heard. And today we are on the verge of deciding whether we allow these voices to soar or whether we cage them, confined by restricted bylaws. This isn't just about spaces or purpose. This is about the soul of our city and the spirit of our nation. Our forefathers fought to ensure that our voices wouldn't be stifled and that our expressions wouldn't be curtailed. We are not just policymakers or citizens today. We are guardians of an age-old legacy. As we deliberate on these new bylaws, let us remember our commitment to our core values of the Constitution. Let us ensure that any change we make are balanced, just, and respectful of the rights we all cherish. The freedom of speech and expression is not merely a legal right. It is a beacon that lights our way, reminding us of who we are and what we stand for. Let us tread carefully and ensure that the flame of this beacon remains undiminished. Let us never forget our roots, our passion, and our duty to protect the sacred symphony of free expression and free speech. Together, we shape the legacy we leave for our children and the generations to come. I urge each of you to stand with me in safeguarding our city's freedom, ensuring that the Port of San Diego and the city remains a haven for unrestricted, free, and peaceful expression and creativity for all. Thank you.
Sharon Flowers, followed by Travis Winter.
Good afternoon, Chair Castellanos, Commissioners, Acting President Caniglio, and Council Tom Russell. My name is Sharon Clark. I'm President of the San Diego Working Waterfront. I want to tell you, because you took the mobility devices study off today, that's why the other tenants aren't here. I am speaking on behalf of those tenants that would have been here today. I'm here today with my Vice Chair, Sarah Marsh, and my Secretary, Sophie Silvestri, so they can witness that we've talked to our tenants. We fully support staff's recommendations, especially the reduction in the Seaport area, because those tenants pay a premium for small mom and pop companies. And by the way, they have to pay for their parking as well. I wish we could all get some free parking. But I was happy to hear that some of our vendors today do support the ordinance. I remember when we were looking at this before, they were all fighting with each other. I wish we had a copy of the video that I thought might have been played today. But if you saw what it looked like before, it was like going to a swap meet. It seriously was. What you see today is enjoyment, real enjoyment by everybody, even by the people that visit here. So I can't even thank Erica, Larry, Sophie, General Services, the Harbor Police. Your team has done a phenomenal job, and I just want to thank them from the bottom of our heart from our tenants' perspective. Thank you.
We have Travis Winter, followed by Ken Smith.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Travis Weininger. I'm the Vice President of Operations for the San Diego Symphony, and we operate the Rady Shell in Embarcadero and Embark South. I'm here to speak today in support of the amendment, which we believe has and will continue to help with issues we've experienced with unregulated vending. For us at the Shell, that's been specifically food vendors, which line up in a wall outside of our gates and interfere with the safe egress of our guests. Also creating stains and slip hazards on the concrete with the grease that stays after those vendors have left. One issue we did want to raise for your consideration in the future is that around enforcement. Our events typically end between 9:30 9:30 to 10 in the evening. And we understand that there currently aren't community service officers available at that time. So we would just ask that you consider expanding the hours of enforcement. Thank you.
We have Ken Smith, followed by Edgar Rojas with time seated.
Good afternoon, I'm Ken Smith. I'm the Safety Security Manager on the USS Midway, so I speak on behalf of Midway. Very short and sweet. We are very much in favor of the increased enforcement. We've noticed a lot of changes. Some of the other folks have mentioned the streamlining effect. The Bayview access, pedestrian access down there was very chaotic prior to the enforcement. One of the positive sides of the enforcement, we were having problems with some unlicensed vendors down there who were actually harassing the Midway guests. Midway gets about 1 million guests from all over the world, and there's nothing worse than having unlicensed people down there literally harassing them, forcing goods in their face and taking their money. Those people are gone, so hats off to the Harbor Police and the rest of the enforcement team. We're very much in favor of that. We like the streamlined appearance. Glad to hear that a lot of the vendors are also happy with that. I myself received several complaints over the last year. People were calling me, complaining about what's going on there. Like, I'm no longer a cop. That's not my jurisdiction. I have gotten 0 calls since the enforcement stepped up. Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
We have Edgar Rojas with time seated by Flora Lopez. Will adjust your time to 4 minutes.
Yes. Hey, good afternoon. I'll be speaking on behalf of my mom. Her name is Flora Lopez. So my mom has been working at the Port of San Diego selling at Destiny Mexicanas for more than a decade. Before Quality Coast, who we work with at the moment, we were selling Next Anthony's dish product without a permit. We did that for at least a year until Quality Coast presented us with an opportunity to do this legally. Since then, we've been down there running with not just our business, but also with the board and the community. We stuck it out through the worst times, when no one was down there, to the best times. We got work with Quality Coast, the board officials, and Harbor Police to see how to improve everything going on throughout the years. After the pandemic, things got a little hectic, but we knew things would end up okay. I like that the port is presenting opportunities to other vendors to do what we did years ago. My question for you guys is, what about us? So, what is the solution for us that we've been vending here for years and now have to get into this lottery system and maybe get a chance at a spot? My mom has invested 10+ years into not just our business, but also into the community we live down here. This has not only helped me and my family throughout the years, but also future opportunities for everyone here. Can you guys get us in touch with someone that can honor our commitment to the port and your commitment to us? Don't let our decade of partnership go to waste. My next topic is the terminating of the contracts for Quality Coast. So there was a decision in terminating the Quality Coast contract until December of this year. My mom has given 10+ years to her business, and now has 3 months to sell through all her merchandise, which she'll have to probably operate at a loss. 3 months is not enough time to figure out our next steps going into these new decisions, especially with this low season coming in. Is there any way to extend our stay from December to maybe a little bit farther out? And just a personal opinion on the decisions made with vending, I think 6 months isn't enough time when building or running a small business. You set up shop and get things going for only a few months, then you have no idea if it's possible again for the rest of the year. What then? So if you give people opportunities to be out here, maybe a little bit more time. We've been doing this for plenty of years. I've stuck out with my mom for 10+ years. This is my first time doing my own business. It's been about 3 years. They went great. We kind of see how everything goes, especially with limited time. So just try to think about that. Give people a little bit more time to kind of like stick it out and see if it works out for them. But thank you guys.
Followed by Denise Whitaker.
Good afternoon. My name is William Bertiz. I'm the Economic Development Director of Williams Community Development Corporation. Just want to give a quick update on our strategic partnership with the Port of San Diego. So with the Port, during their inaugural phase of the Vendor Ordinance Initiative, this collaboration aimed to streamline the permitting process, extend support to local vendors, and successfully provide assistance to a substantial number of vendors, organize informative workshops, and leverage various outreach opportunities to enhance the vendor's experience within the Port's designated areas. We were able to reach out to over 250 individuals, and the number of vendors we assisted were 185, and the number of workshops we worked with these vendors were 4. Out of the 185 vendors, 162 were BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, people of color. 120 were women-owned businesses, and 175 were considered low and moderate income. Thank you.
We have Denise Whitaker, followed by Carlos Dominguez.
Hi, my name is Denise Whitaker. I am the CEO and founder of My Beauty's Conscience. I am a vendor at the U.S. Midway. I've been blessed with this opportunity, and I just want to speak on behalf of the vendors. I want to say that as a vendor, we bring value to this tourist area. We add unique products, cultural experiences, and we contribute to the local economy. Our presence adds charm and authenticity to this destination, making us an essential part to the tourist experience. We're not just vendors, we are small businesses as well. Each tent adds a unique value and is only ran by one person. So if we have family issues or the weather might not be as great as someone in a brick and mortar in the area who can just unlock the door or have extra employees, we work tirelessly by ourselves. For this 6 months, we've been, I see the percentages are up in the 90s and the 80s of how often we've been there, whether we get there from 6 in the morning and leave at 9 p.m. the next day. It's a consistent thing. So we should be considered an opportunity to have more than 6 months. I do not appreciate the pit between Expressive and commercial vending, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to make a living to be able to raise our families and be able to provide and create a legacy for ourselves. This area has been able to allow me to continue to promote the brand awareness that I've been an independent contractor for myself for the last 5 years. And I think that we should not be pitted against each other, whether it's a value because I create art or I'm helping someone express their self by the fashion clothing that they wear. Thank you very much.
Carlos Dominguez, followed by Omar Farah.
Muy buenas tardes, soy Carlos Domínguez. Bueno, la verdad que nuestra experiencia como vendedor del puerto de San Diego
Actually, as experience as vendors of San Diego,
ha sido bastante positiva.
it's been very positive.
En primer lugar, desordenados abren una puerta hacia el futuro.
It's well organized and we see a door open to the future.
Sin embargo, espacios demasiado separados entre un stand y otro stand
The space is very separate between one stand and the other one.
perjudica directamente nuestras ventas.
It prejudices our sales.
Ya que la expectativa de la gente
The expectations of the people
es ver un conjunto de vendedores todos
is to see a
apilados
group of people,
así
vendors,
hacer su feria.
so that each one can make their money.
También hay stands que han estado
Also,
no
there are
ocupados.
stands that are not taken, not occupied.
Generalmente se trataba de stands de no vending, sino que de arte,
In general, not vendors, but of just of art,
perjudicando directamente a nuestras.
which also affects our sales.
Aumentar la fiscalización o darle un lugar
To increase
para que otros también puedan vender y
So
una de
others
las soluciones que nosotros como vendedores.
can also a bit sell with something we would like.
En algunas ocasiones compañeros tuvieron que
One occasion,
disminuir
We have to diminish
sus mercaderías por
the
el espacio,
merchandise due to their space,
debido a que era 4x2,
due to its 4x4,
pero
4x2,
4x4,
4x4,
se dice,
or 4x6.
demasiado pequeño para
It's very small
nosotros.
for us.
También así haciendo la posibilidad de que la persona
Also, the
no
possibility.
venda porque obviamente se expande mucho.
They can't sell because there's the
Aumentarlo sería para
to
nosotros
be
ideal.
increasing it will be better. Ideal.
Nos gustaría también la posibilidad de
I would
hacer
also
este
like the
trabajo
possibility
trabajando en conjunto
to
con la
work
ciudad
in
de Santiago
conjunction
para
with
poder
San
elegir más
Diego
lugares
to set up more
y la
places,
posibilidad para que otros vendedores se
and the
integren.
possibility that other vendors
Quizá también, por ejemplo, Mission Day, las
extend to
comunidades
Mission Day, La
que tienen
Florida
este
Park that
programa.
have this program.
En otro lugar, incluir también una carta de
Including
estacionamiento,
regarding the parking,
permiso para
or
estacionamiento.
permit for parking.
Porque así como dijo mi
Like
compañera,
my
yo también tuve
partner
tickets
said, I also
de
have
estacionamiento.
tickets for parking.
Bueno, agradezco por esta
I
oportunidad.
thank you for this
Dios les bendiga.
opportunity and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Roxanne, oh, I'm sorry, Omar Farah, followed by Michelle.
Thanks for having me. My name is Omar Farah. I own several shops in the city and half of them. I've been there the past 80 years, and I've seen a lot of changes in the waterfront. Unfortunately, you know, what you see is street vendors getting increasing every year. And as you know that we've been heavily rent in Seaport Village. And you've seen this vendor selling the same machine, that's what we do. We can control it. Thanks for the port and Larry and his team, they're doing a great job controlling what they have to provide these vendors. But unfortunately, as you know that, they're using our company area, they're using our parking lot, they're using our trash. We're paying for all of that, and it's not fair. Either we can work as a team, you can work in a certain area. It used to be in front of the corner in the past, as street farm, as like they do in farmers market. And it's been controlled very well in the past, and they're not selling the same machine, that's what we do. Right now, we're seeing our sales going down. We are down almost 30% in previous year. And we're seeing the street vendors selling the same machine, that's what we do. The quality cost, we're doing a great job, doing kiosks, and unfortunately, one guy controlling most of the kiosks and selling the same machine, that's what we do. We need to put control to the street vendors and enforce more items for them. And I know I understand, I'm not against it, but I won't appreciate it if they stay away from Seaport Village because we pay half the rent. Either we reduce our rent and let them survive, or other than that, we can be out of business. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Michelle McFadden, Roxanne, followed by Armando Roman.
So, two different sections. First, the First Amendment artist, because that's where I am. You guys all know me. I've said it last time. You've all agreed with me. Before all of the commercial vendors came in, you guys didn't have to regulate us. We were peaceful. We didn't get anything to label. We were good. So a lot of vendors have had an issue of like how you're restricting our setups. We think there's some job. Specific spots, sure, but other than that, just let us do what we do. Because we do it well, and if there's a problem, then you have enforcement. In terms of the commercial vendors, we do need food vendors out there, both for our sake as well as yours, because what we saw happen was without the food vendors there, people actually spend a lot less time in certain areas. So that takes sales away from us, and it impacted all of the vendors in my area significantly this year, as well as if you want people looking at the kissing statue in the middle and all that, you want to keep them around and really let them get that experience. And that's kind of the placebo effect that the food vendors have. So we need at least one or two, just something, like actual food, not snacks. Really, really need that. I do think too, if commercial vendors are not there by 1 o'clock, then another compliant commercial vendor should be able to take that spot. This helps with the diversity, because if you guys, whether it's extended 6 months, stay 6 months or a year, this makes it so there's always at least a little bit of a different flow, gives people a little bit more opportunity, and it makes it so the boardwalk, for instance, is full and looks lively and is taken care of. Parking, yeah, $25. I don't know if that's you guys or Ace is sucker, but like it was 10 and it went to 25, and that's crazy, guys. Come on, like help us a little bit with parking.
Time is expired. Armando Roman, followed by Christopher Holt.
Good afternoon, my name is Armando Roman. I'm a vendor down at the Embarcadero. One of the things that I wanted to start off with is to congratulate the staff. Complete turnaround from what we were experiencing a year ago. It's not perfect, of course, and it was a learning experience for both the vendors, for the Park and Rec Department, and for the enforcement. But I think that those things have worked itself out. Yes, there were some citations that were unnecessary, and we were able to address those. But again, congratulations to Larry and staff. Things that I'm concerned that the permit is too short. 6 months does not give us adequate time to get the proper inventory necessary, because there's still issues with supply. If I need to order merchandise, it might take me 6, 7, 8, or 12 weeks, that's 3 months, for it to come in, and I have 3 months left to sell this merchandise. It's not enough. Second is the parking. Everybody keeps talking about that. The parking currently right now, we're allowed to stay 3 hours in that area. After 3 hours, we have to move out of the area someplace else. We cannot stay there. So the only option would be to go to Ace and pay $25. $25 takes a chunk out of the daily sales. That is the problem. We need some kind of parking for the vendors. And I'm not saying free parking. If there is a monthly amount that we need to pay, let it be. But at least it's secure. We don't have to worry about leaving the spot, going to go find another place, coming back, and then doing what we need to do. That's basically what I wanted to address with, and thank you very much for your time.
Followed by Roger Strassman.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher Holtwick, and I am the caricature artist who sets up at Tuna Harbor Park. I'd like to thank the Port of San Diego for allowing us the opportunity to speak and for providing and maintaining a beautiful space that I believe is one of the highlights of San Diego. I would also like to thank the Port for finally enforcing Ordinance 8.05. For 10 years, I've made Tuna Harbor Park the location where I express my love of mankind and act as a beacon that welcomes people from around the world through my art. While changes made in May 2023 have improved the wretchedly overrun and ill-maintained haven for illegal vendors, there are still a lot of problems with the updated ordinance. For one, there used to be a lot more spots in the Tuna Harbor for all types of free expression, such as art, music, politics, and religion. Since the law passed, 10 to 15 people that used to frequent the Tuna Harbor Park now have to struggle to find a place to express themselves given to them by the First Amendment. We still have to get to the port at 6 or 7 a.m., even though foot traffic rarely arrives until 9 or 10 a.m. And when we do arrive, there is selective enforcement of the law. Harbor police, who spent almost a year allowing illegal hot dog and churro vendors to set up 3 or more tents in one designated space, are now giving tickets to artists for slightly exceeding 10 feet in space. When all of the express activity spots are taken and there are abundance of commercial spaces open, artists are receiving tickets for setting up in an improvised way, which best showcases their art. I still believe the Tuna Harbor section of the Port of San Diego should go back to fully free expression spots, and the Harbor Police should continue to enforce the law against illegal vendors and stop selectively harassing free speech individuals. Thank you.
Roger Strassman, followed by Lisa. Don't see a Rogers Strassen. We'll take Adisa, followed by Willie Brown.
First, I would like to address Malibu Farms and say welcome to the neighborhood, which is definitely no Mr. Rogers. Because as part of your lease agreement, you wanted the port to cut down all those beautiful African violet trees, and they did, so that your guests can have an unobstructed view of Coronado. So it only stands to reason you have no problem throwing away people right at your doorstep who have been there for the last 10 years and for the last 2 to 3 years while we stood in your dust as you completely delayed the opening for 3 years. So Vending, the Port of San Diego recently bought Seaport Village, and they're creating unfair vendors. If you're a commercial vendor, then you are needed by the port, because they're trying to run the owners and the renters who actually pay them thousands of dollars a month out of business, because they gave them a sweetheart deal that if they signed a 10-year lease, should any construction begin, they will buy them out of their lease. But they don't want to buy them out the lease, so instead they have set these vendors right outside their door for $35 for 6 months when they pay tens of thousands every month to the port. Citations. I've gotten at least 40 of these citations, thousands of dollars, for doing exactly what I've been doing for the last 12 years. Can I have a little more time, please?
We'll ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
At the end of the day, the port is corrupt. They're trying to run their own vendors out of business and not buy them out as they promised. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
We have Willie Brown. I don't see anyone coming forward, so just to confirm, Roger Strassman and Willie Brown are no longer here. That will conclude public comment.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to commissioner comments and discussion. Any commissioners who would like to speak on this item? Sure.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to thank staff for your hard work on this. Understanding that when you do an ordinance like this and when you make changes, I think the term perfect is, almost unattainable. You just try and make things better. And I was heartened to hear that we had testimony today that things are in fact better after implementing this ordinance. Some of the vendors acknowledge that. I hear the working waterfront talking about that. I heard, I think it was the squat meet atmosphere, that we had before. And really what that means is you get that many people unorganized in an area, and it's a threat to public health and safety and public access. And those are two things that are very important for the port of San Diego to maintain. And I think that what this ordinance has done has provided a lot more organization in the area, the rules, and that really has benefited public health and safety and public access. That's what I am seeing when I'm down there. Kurt said, one of our people today talked about Mr. Dorsett, we just can't restrict First Amendment rights, and we're criticizing free speech. And I just want to make a comment on that. As a government agency, we are under constitutional mandate. However, we do have an interest, a big interest in public health and safety and public access. And because of that, we are able to place reasonable time, manner, and time, manner, and place restrictions in order to promote public health, public access, to promote functioning of the public land that we are fiduciaries under. And I, as one commissioner, believe that the ordinance does promulgate reasonable time, manner, and place restrictions, as is our right. In terms of politicizing this, it is exactly the opposite. We are trying to promote our tidelands, to have people come down, to have a good experience on our tidelands, to have a safe experience, whether you are a vendor, whether you are a visitor, a guest. That is what this ordinance is all about. So I just want to kind of publicly push back on that a little bit and say, you know, what we're doing is well within our constitutional authority and is not politicizing the issue. We care about the vendors, and we care about our guests. I do have some questions for staff, and they're based on some of the comments and questions that I heard here today. What about in certain areas where you have tenants or operations? What about amplified music in certain areas? Do we have a restriction for that? Or how do we deal with that?
Commissioner Malcolm, Larry Hoffreiter for the record. Yes, we do. We didn't have to address it during this update, but back in February when we updated the ordinance, we identified an 85 decibel sound limit, and we do have instruments to measure that. And we actually, prior to the fact, we actually went out there in person and tested to make sure that it was loud enough where people around the vendor could hear an acoustic guitar or even a small guitar with an amplifier, but it wasn't too loud where it would be disruptive to the general public. So we feel pretty comfortable with that 85 decibel limitation in the current ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And I assume, just like any ordinance, we're going to continue to monitor to see whether or not the levels we set are reasonable and are working. And that's part of what we do here is we, you know, when things don't work, we make changes, and when they do, we acknowledge it. So, okay, thank you. Can you explain a little bit, I believe we talked about it in the last meeting, but it came up a number of times, the reason why we're doing 6-month permits versus 1-year permits?
Larry Hoffreiter for the record again. Yes, Commissioner Malcolm. The 6-month permit time was essentially, you know, our recommendation to give more vendors an opportunity to vend. If you remember back in February, our initial thought was to do, I think it was 3 months, do an opportunity drawing 4 times a year. And the thinking there is, you know, we'd be able to hit 120 of those qualified people at least one time a year. But that being said, it's at the board's discretion. If the board feels like a 1-year time period is more appropriate based upon the public testimony, staff is willing to support that.
Okay, it is somewhat compelling to me, you know, people making the statement that a year, it's a little bit more planning, a little bit more time. You know, I would be actually looking for staff feedback and an opinion on that. What you think, now that we've had this in place a while. I am actually open to the concept of 1-year permits because I think it provides certainty to everyone, it provides certainty to the vendors. You know, so I just kind of want to hear, you know, staff wants to weigh in on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Larry Hoffreiter for the record. I don't know if Simon or Eric or the captain have any comments, but I think generally, I think, you know, the staff is open to going to a full year. Again, you know, but for, you know, based upon the 120 qualified commercial applicants we had, one way of looking at it is every time you issue 1 permit, right, there's 3 potential people that don't have an opportunity to vend that particular year. So again, the reason we wanted kind of more turnover initially so we could reach more people, but again, it's at the board's discretion, and if, particularly based upon the public comment today and what we're hearing from people, I don't think staff has any problems going to a full year permit.
Okay, you know, I mean, just from my standpoint, I kind of think, you know, you're always weighing interest. That's what we do up here. And I understand wanting to turn over, wanting the access, although I also read in the staff report that a lot of the spaces aren't used sometimes. And, you know, I think that, you know, it is in our interest and our vendors and our tenants' interest, you know, to provide certainty. That's why when we do tenant leases, we do more than a year, So, you know, now that's enclosed space, but I do kind of think that a year seems reasonable, you know, and then again, we can reevaluate, but I want to hear from my other fellow commissioners, and they might have a different point of view. On particular vendors, we heard about food vendors. We heard about vendors that are selling some of the same merchandise as some of the vendors in Seaport Village. There's a little bit of a competition there. First on food, I think there's some health reasons, some other reasons why we may not want to get into that. I'd like to hear from staff, specifically on food. And then what about this concept of vendors competing with existing tenants that are within an area, especially sometimes when tenants have exclusive use, you know, rights for certain things. How do we reconcile all that?
Commissioner Malcolm Larry Hoffreiter for the record again. On your first item, in terms of providing food, the ordinance currently allows for food, but because we do an opportunity drawing, we don't necessarily know if a food vendor is going to be selected or if a merchandise vendor is going to be selected. So it's really random, and this first cycle that we went through, we actually only had 2 food vendors that were permitted through the opportunity drawing. So that's in response to your first question. In terms of the second question, when we go back to the Safe Sidewalk Vending Act, one of the stipulations in the legislature made in SB 946 is that local agencies should not look at the impact that sidewalk vending has to commercial businesses. So we've intentionally not looked at that particular component.
Okay, I mean that's a reasonable answer. I think we want to be in compliance with the law. Well, again, thank you. This is a very detailed subject. Really appreciate the staff time. Just once again, thank you everyone for coming out, no matter where you stand on this and where your comments were today. We need to hear public comment in order to craft the best ordinance that we can. Thank you.
Chairman, if I could just make one correction. As we previously discussed the last time we here, first of all, Simon Khan, Assistant General Counsel. As we previously discussed last time, the Safe Sidewalks Act is not technically applicable to the port because we are in a city or county. However, this board has chosen to follow some of the policy guidelines about that. And so, as Larry talked about, one of that being one of the reasons not to get into the competition issue, I just wanted to make clear that that is not a law that binds the court.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner Malcolm. I was reminded that I forgot to close the public hearing. I'll do that now. And then move on to Commissioner.
Yeah, I'll say it all again. No.
Just the same way.
And then move on to Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Malcolm, for the excellent comments. I also wanted to congratulate staff. As Commissioner Malcolm said, nothing's ever perfect, but I think based overall on all the comments that were given today, I think you guys have done a really great job, and I wanted to congratulate you on that. Also, I would probably like to weigh in on the 1-year permit. I think having it extended, in my opinion, the 1 year seems like it's reasonable. Again, sort of balancing, I understand wanting to open it up for more people, but there seems to be some real, sort of common sense business reasons to actually have it be a 1-year permit. And did you mention that there was 120 applicants?
Commissioner Ann Moore, Larry Hoffreiter for the record. Yes, following the outreach that we did with Logan Heights Community Development Corporation, we were able to qualify about 120 applicants for the first opportunity drawing last time.
So I think even though there's a lot of people that are interested, I think keeping it for a 1-year period seems to me good business practice. So I'm just curious as to what the other commissioners would say about that. Somebody also raised the idea of, and I don't know if it's practical or not, but if somebody doesn't show up to a spot, I noticed that people have said that there's some spots that just nobody shows up. I'm wondering if there's a practical way that you can get somebody else to maybe be on a standby list, or I don't know if it's like hours before contacting somebody, but maybe the date. I mean, is there any way to work something like that at all?
Larry Albright for the record again. We can look into that, Commissioner Moore. One of the things that we did do, or that we learned, is we did call the commercial vendors that had very low occupancy rates this past time, and talk to them and ask what was going on. And it was really for various personal circumstances. One person had a sick husband, one person wasn't happy with the location. One person's the jewelry that they purchased didn't sell well. So we didn't see any real kind of unifying theme in terms of why all those commercial spaces weren't used regularly. In terms of, we can certainly look to see if there's an opportunity, maybe in our administrative procedures, to, if after a few days, if we get reports that it's not being used, maybe we can reach out to an alternative commercial vendor that was an alternative that was selected. Because what we did with the opportunity drawing is we did select a number of alternatives in case one didn't go through. So we could certainly look at those opportunities going forward.
Yeah, I think that that may be something that to look at if we as a board decide that we want to go with the 1-year permit, because that might give more people an opportunity to basically utilize the area, and especially if you're getting reports from some of the vendors that their items aren't selling well, or they're not interested in maybe maintaining that spot. It might be think about a way that perhaps, and I have confidence in you guys, to be able to maybe get then a new vendor to come in, or to open up that opportunity for others as well. And I think also I am a supporter of the amplified music. I think we do have to make sure we look at that, pay attention to it, because I think part of the enjoyment of the Bayfront is not to have music that's too loud or competing music or sound. So anyway, I'm a supporter of that. And I'm also a supporter of the idea of limiting some of the spaces in order to expand the Bayfront view and the access. So I think that's also very important as well. I think all of that all of that is part of the experience of Bayfront. So I think I'm a supporter of that as well. And I just wanted to clarify for the record is that I can say that I've never heard a commissioner up here ever say that we're above the law. And the grand jury report did not make that statement. That was never said. And so I just wanted to clarify that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Hurtasun.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the comments that were made before me by Commissioner Malcolm and Commissioner Moore. The time frames, Larry, I do think that if we can work that out to where we go over the year, I think I support that. On the food permits, for those that we're allowing to go on there, are we requiring that they have health permits?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know, it seems to me like we received some correspondence from the folks at the Rainy Shell talking about cleanup efforts and how much was being left behind previously as patrons were leaving the Shell in the evenings. I'm sure you're on that, but that's something that we have to keep a close look at. On the combination between expressive and commercial operations, I'd like you to have some flexibility there. Again, if some expressive folks don't show up, and it would allow us to bring in some folks, have somebody on a standing line or waiting line or something like that, I would support that. I just want to point out that the comments that were made by Ms. Placencia and Ms. Pineda were right on point. I think that I think that we ought to take that into consideration. They're very supportive, as I am, of the work that you have been doing, and I just think that we ought to just think, there's a couple little tweaks that we can still do here to make this thing much better than what it is.
Thank you, Commissioner Hurtasun. Commissioner Guest.
Thank you all. Sure, of course, comments today. And also I agree with spots not being occupied by vendors who are permitted. In this case, if we go to a full 12-month period, I appreciate what you did last time, checking in with vendors who weren't showing up, and if that becomes the case, maybe there's something that we can do to be on the list or something like that. So I fully support all of that. The other questions I had have already been asked, except for one, which relates to the 3 hours versus 1 hour absence from the space. I don't know what I'm talking about. Quote me on that as opposed to being above anything, but I think 3 hours strikes me as too much, and 1 hour strikes me as being a little thin. And so, not just trying to split things here, but it seems like 2 hours is more reasonable time, especially for people who, if they forget something and need to drive home. And so, I mean, unless there's a compelling reason why that is going to create some other issue, it seems like bringing it down to only a 1 hour as a permissible absence seems a little stiff. So I guess I would suggest a 2 hour hearing, either nothing from staff or some nodding heads. I would suggest whoever is going to try and make this motion to change the proposal from the 3 hour absence to from the 1 hour to a 2 hour. Or currently it's 3, it's proposed to be 1, make it 2. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other commissioners who would like to speak. We are going to open a special meeting at 3 o'clock. If it's possible to get a motion made on this item that we can vote on, that would be my preference. Simon?
Chairman Castellanos, Larry Hoffreiter for the record. We took some really good notes here, and I think we got some really good direction. Just to make sure that we were responsive to the board direction, we'd like to maybe possibly come back to a future meeting based upon the discussion today with an amended ordinance based upon, looking at a 2 hour, the number of things that were discussed today, if the board would be open to that.
Do any commissioners have any objection to this coming back after more staff work? Okay, that sounds great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to adjourn this meeting. We will, after a very short recess, so that the clerk's office can set up for the special meeting, probably 5 minutes is what I've been informed would be adequate. We will come back and open that meeting. This current meeting will be adjourned until we end the special meeting, at which time we will start and continue and finish this meeting. So with that, I will adjourn the current meeting for now, and we'll take a short recess.